there, thank you so much. Welcome to the Film Fan Club Show. I'm Sam Carrico. It's our season premiere here at the Film Fan Club Show. Yeah, I hope everybody watching had a really good summer. I know I did. You know, I'm all vaxxed up, so I spent a lot of time watching movies. I gotta tell you, I spent more time at the theater than John Wilkes Booth preparing for a presidential visit. What? No, it was a really good summer for movies though. Later on we're going to be talking about Shang Chi a little bit. But I also saw the movie Werewolves Within. It's this supernatural black comedy where a group of people think one of them might be a wolf. And no, I'm not talking about some weird intervention for a furry. I went to see The Green Knight, and while it sounds like a documentary about the side effects of global warming, it's actually this epic Arthurian tale where Dev Patel cheats on Marion Cotillard with Marion Cotillard? I mean, I get it, you know. And that wasn't the only Marion Cotillard movie I saw this summer. On Amazon Prime, yeah, Amazon, I know, there's this musical Annette with Adam Driver. My gosh, this movie was something else. I hope that you get the chance to see it. Adam Driver, of course, plays a powerful but immature man that causes harm to those that he loves. But enough about his Star Wars movies. Over on HBO Max, there's this movie Shiva Baby that's streaming. Have you guys seen this? It's a horror black comedy about this college student that goes to a funeral with her parents, and while she's there, she runs into both her sugar daddy and her ex-girlfriend. Yeah, and when I say horror, I mean it. This is the scariest movie since Mean Girls. And finally, Zola is a movie that I also saw at my local Circle Cinema, and it's the first movie to be based on a Twitter thread. But before you can say kids these days, I gotta tell you, it's one of my favorite movies of the summer. This girl goes on a trip to Florida with her friend to make money at a strip club, but she gets in over her head when they get kidnapped. And I honestly don't have a joke for that. Sex trafficking isn't funny. But you should see the movie though. Okay, we've got a great show for you lined up. Later on, we're going to have a round table of actors to break down the controversy surrounding Black Widow and Scarlett Johansson versus Disney. But first, let's get right to our discussion of Shang Chi. All right, joining me now to discuss Shang Chi, he is a freelance video editor based in Texas. Alex McKellar is with me. Hey, Alex.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going quite well. It's good to see you. It's been a big summer for superheroes, right? So what has kind of been your read of this summer as far as blockbusters go?
I mean, it's been interesting. It's like, especially, you know, with the pandemic and movies having not been a thing for a while, it's sort of been interesting getting back into, like, especially like just take the Marvel universe, getting back into it. Like I remember when I saw Black Widow, I was like, oh yeah, this is still going on and it's going to be going on forever.
That brings us to Shang-Chi. Like you said, you saw it's the first kind of Marvel cinematic film, like, because I guess technically Black Widow was part of, you know, phase 4 of the Marvel universe, but this is the first, you know, new story, you know, not a prequel, I guess we should say, for the film franchise in phase 4. So generally, you know, what did you think of Shang-Chi?
I had a good time with it. You know, I thought, you know, just sort of big picture, the fight choreography, especially in the earlier bits of the film that were more grounded, were a lot of fun. Like the fight scene between mom and the dad, and then the one on the bus, you know, I was like, oh, this is exciting to see this kind of well choreographed, fun kung fu stuff actually going on, well shot. All of that was exciting. And then, you know, yeah, it was cool to see something new, I guess, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not like Black Widow was fun, had some problems with it, but then this being its own new property, like the real steps going forward with new characters, you know, new world stuff going on. It was, I mean, there are bits of the movie that I, you know, didn't enjoy, but like overall, I would say it was a good time watching it, you know, and I had fun. And it'll be interesting to see where these characters go and what's going to happen in phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, they laid it on very thick. And, you know, for those watching, we will get into spoilers here just in a second. But broadly speaking, I guess I pretty much agree with you. I think it was a good film. Okay. And it was fine. It was just, I don't want to jump right into it, but this was a very forgettable film. I was thinking, I told you off camera, okay, let's watch it, wait a week, then record our review, marinate on our thoughts. And then I'm like, because surely there'll be a lot of things that stick with me and I'll be able to expand upon those things. And I have to add the context, you know, I'm a white guy, you know, this film isn't really made for me in the way that it's made for other people. I get that. So that context withstanding, I don't remember. I mean, okay, so the action is great. I really like the Kung Fu stuff. The main character, I think, Shang-Chi himself, he didn't really have enough of a personality, I think. I think he kind of felt like a wooden plank throughout the whole film, whereas you know, Steve Rogers has a very distinct personality in the first Captain America.
Right.
Tony Stark has a very distinct personality in the first Iron Man film. Even some of the other characters, Black Widow, very you understand. You can name traits about her. Shang Chi, I just felt like he was just kind of a stand-in, and he felt like a very stagnant character. Like he understood from the very beginning. I felt like that his dad was a bad guy, and he'd have to take him down. And there was not really as much of that conflict that I would have liked to have been portrayed. Honestly, I found his sister to be the most interesting character in the whole. Awkwafina, very annoying, but his sister was very, very interesting. I wanted to see more about her. So this film overall, I mean, I think the overall thing is forgettable. Is my reaction to it.
Yeah, I would say they're like between Shang-Chi and Awkwafina, there were bits of their interactions that I enjoyed, and there were bits that I would agree rubbed me the wrong way. I wasn't as bothered by the actor playing Shang-Chi as I think you were. Like I
don't think it was the actor's fault. I guess I should clarify.
Right.
It wasn't the actor's fault. I think it was just a fault of the writers.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good with that. It's like I definitely agree with you. His sister was the most interesting character, and even the dad towards the end became more interesting. Like sort of as we got to know why he's doing this stuff now, and sort of one thing I remember thinking, I was like, oh, this is Star Wars again. We've got brother sister kind of estranged, and we've got evil dad who like maybe we're gonna redeem, maybe we're not. I do think like the main character Shang-Chi is suffering from this being an origin story. Like it's got to hit those beats. Like we've got to like this guy. He's got to be good. He's got to have a little bit of conflict. So hopefully, if they continue going forward, we'll get more out of his character, because it's like, oh man, that is interesting that you were basically brought up to be an assassin, and now you're living this life where you don't really care about your job and you're just hanging out, like you're essentially from like kung fu royalty, and all this stuff, but now you're just chilling. Like, so all of that could be interesting if it gets developed more moving throughout the cinematic universe. But I do agree. I think it kind of suffers from that being an origin story problem.
People often say, I don't know who, people often say that a story should be motivated by your characters. Your characters shouldn't be motivated by the story, or at least a compelling character, drives the story, is not being driven by the story. And I felt like throughout this film, the character of Shang-Chi is just being moved around this chessboard that is the story because other events are happening, like his dad, he's like, and that's kind of part of the story. Like he's been putting off having to face off with his dad until he absolutely has to, because he doesn't want to have to confront that, and this is about him being forced to confront that. I get that, but all these, and then they make the character of the sister such an interesting character that she almost undercuts our main character. But I like the way that they characterize the sister. So like these are all good things. That just unfortunately you're left with our main character that I feel is very underdeveloped and very underwritten.
Yeah.
And like I want to put to like, okay, let's do a sequel where, now that we got the origin story out of the way, where his morals, his sense, are really put to the test. But then if you said, Sam, okay, what are Shang-Chi's core values? I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Right. No, that's a good point. Yeah, he sort of goes through the movie again, like, just being either told who he is, not necessarily figuring out who he is and what his values are. So hopefully we'll get a more interesting character as it goes on, because he's going to be around now.
Let me try and go through what I remember from the film. Okay, right. So it's like it hopscotches through the origin of the 10 rings, which, to clarify, is the same 10 rings like entity organization that kidnapped Tony Stark in the first Iron Man?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe that's what it's supposed to be.
So anyways, so we go through the whole history. We meet Shang-Chi as he is now. He works as a valet. But he already has these powers, right? So then the bus scene happens. So he's already like, he doesn't have to be trained or anything, because he's already been trained. It tells us in the flashbacks. And the bus scene is like, it just feels like, okay, we're going to take a break now. And I hope you enjoy this next action sequence, here you go. But that being said, I loved it. The action scene was like amazing. The person I was with was immediately like, oh, hell yeah, it's the bus scene, because I saw in all the marketing, or we saw in all the marketing, that it was going to be this really cool spectacle. So story problems, whatever. And then I forget what the inciting incident is that brings him to go meet up with his
they steal
sister.
the necklace.
She gets the thing in the mail.
Yeah, so he gets the letter in the mail that I
Yeah,
guess was actually sent by the father.
but he thought it was the sister, right?
Yeah.
So he goes and
So
meets up with her, and then she's like immediately better than him in every way.
yeah.
Yeah, she's like running
Well, I
this
mean,
club, but it's
yeah,
cool.
she's like underground crime boss. And then like in their fight, you get the sense that like he's like, wait, why are we fighting? I thought we were friends. And she's
And
like,
it
no,
felt
you
kind
left.
of
I'm gonna kick
like
your ass.
it's kind of like the Black Widow and Yelena fight, and when they first
Right.
meet each other in Black Widow, it's like, wait, why are they trying to kill each other? They have a whole mission to do, and it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of a
Yeah.
fun little thing. And then his dad, like his forces show up at the club that his sister runs, tries to kill them, but then his dad shows up like, I knew they wouldn't be able to kill you or whatever, and then he takes them, and I think he
Yeah.
like tries to convert his son, right? He tries to do the Darth Vader thing, like
Yeah.
in Return of the Jedi, like, oh, you'll take my place eventually, right? And then
Right.
he doesn't. He leaves or something. And he ends up with Michelle Yeoh, right? He leaves
Well,
the
yeah,
dad's
that's when
compound.
they get in the car with Trevor and the pig thing, and they got to drive through the magic
They
forest.
just decide to drive away. They're
Well,
like, no,
I
no,
mean,
no,
they've been made prisoners,
by the
right?
dad.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember. I saw this movie.
See? Yeah.
Yeah. And then along the way, like I said, they drive through, there's this weird forest thing, and then
Yeah.
Michelle Yeoh is there, and then they do a training montage. Aquafina, again, annoying character, was her arc. I don't know if you could call it that. Her arc of like making her parents proud, and then the arrow at the end, and like train.
Yeah.
I called it. There was a moment where they're like, I can't remember if they're like practicing or something, and she's bad at it, or somebody tells her that she's
Right.
going to be really bad at. Oh, somebody says a woman can't do that, or something like that. Or
Yeah. Or
isn't
like
that right?
she's not. Yeah, something to like
She gets
they're trying to train
discouraged.
her, and he's like, yeah. The guy was like, no, you're too new at this, and you don't take things seriously.
Exactly.
And she was like, Ooh.
I turn to the person I'm with, and I'm like, okay, at the very end, she's gonna like be really good at it, and that's gonna be like her moment at the end. And I predicted that she was gonna go like and do it, and she'd be really good at it, and the person next to her would go, and then she would go, something like that. They didn't quite go that far. I would have loved it. I am very proud that I was close.
Yeah, no.
And then finally, I think we're pretty close to talking about most of Shang Chi, but I just got to talk about the sister, my favorite character in the whole film. She is a little bit. If you've seen The Boys, a little bit of the girls get it done kind of or whatever in some scene. And that's the way they make her so much better than Shang-Chi, which so it kind of is to the detriment of Shang-Chi. But I was really excited about her character. So whenever at the end of we can talk about the other post-credits scene too, but whenever at the end of the post-credits, it says the 10 rings will return. I was like, hell yeah, fuck Shang-Chi. I don't even care. Like, give me her being a badass. But question to you, Alex, in addition to what did you think about her, in her storylines for the future, but did you think it was a little out of left field to have her take over the organization? Is she a bad guy now was it out of left field to do that?
See, I'm not sure. I think like it had that feeling of like, am I supposed to be like, oh no, she's bad now at the end? Or is it just like, okay, now she has this organization, and is this organization bad?
Like, I remember it was kind of funny. The pan out of like her on the throne, and it's this big like CGI like pulling out of the new thing, and it's being like spray painted, and the soundtrack has got like rap music in the background. And it's like, ooh, it's not your daddy's 10 rings.
Right, yeah, it's fucking cool. 10 rings now. It's a hit place.
It was
pretty
fun.
soon. It's gonna look like the where like all the kids hung out in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Shredder. There's just gonna be video games and smoking cigarettes and shit and skateboarding over there.
I'm trying to think of whether or not I would recommend this film. If you're a Marvel fan, if you're somebody who's like watching What If, oh, by the way, the dad storyline in this film, Shang-Chi's dad's storyline in this film, done way better in the Doctor Strange episode of What If. Just saying. It's his whole, the dad storyline is verbatim in the Doctor Strange episode, a billion times better. So if you're a Marvel fan, if you like these things, you're probably going to like this one too, because it is that formula. It's good. It's not Daredevil. It's not John Campea, a film critic that I follow, describes this as the best solo film since Logan. This is not that. This is Ant-Man in terms of Marvel, for me. But so I don't know if
Okay.
I would recommend it to the person who's kind of tired of superhero films. If you want a superhero film and you're only going to watch one or two a year, check out The Suicide Squad would be my recommendation. But if you're a
Yeah.
Marvel fan, go see this film. It'll be right up your alley. And that's not
Yeah.
disparaging, because like I like Marvel movies. I went and saw it. I got a lot of fun out of it. It just is
Yeah.
not. It's mid tier. Alex, what would you think? Would you recommend this to a person?
I mean, I think I'm in a similar boat as you. I might give it, because of the kung fu and like some of the well done cinematography. Like there are parts of this movie where
Yeah,
I was
can't be
like,
undersold.
right, this is what I wished that new Mortal Kombat movie had been. Like these better, more well done fight scenes. Like for real, the fight scene between the dad and the mom in the forest. I was like, man, this is cool. We're getting the low camera angles, the fun wire work effects, like the very well, like I could see every move the people were doing. There was like
they put in
like
the work.
The fight and the drama of the fight. Like I understood everything that was going on. I was like, oh, they're flirting, they're fighting. This is great. I was like, that was probably the high point for me. And then the bus fight scene was like, okay, we're gonna have a cool brawl, but there wasn't the same level of like storytelling going on, other than, and also don't cut in the guy just streaming it for goose. I'm like, no, show me a fight scene. So if you're interested in kung fu and you like Marvel, then definitely check this one out. I think it's, not the pinnacle. Hopefully we have farther to go as far as a good kung fu superhero movie. I think a step in the right direction as far as mixing in that more, Eastern influenced martial arts and filmmaking style. So yeah, to echo you, if you're only going to see a couple superhero movies, I would put Suicide Squad above this. But this is like, it's not a waste of time. It's a fun time at the movies if you're into these kind of things.
Alex McKellar, thank you so much for joining the Film Fan Club show. It's been a pleasure. And of course, you're welcome back anytime.
Great to be here. Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right, let's meet our panel. He is an actor based in Los Angeles, California, returning champion, friend of the show. Peyton Grufick is back with us. Hey, Peyton.
Hey, Sam. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well. And first time newcomer to the show, also an actor based in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but right now he's in an undisclosed location. John C. Bailey is with us. Hey, John.
What? Oh, hi. Hey,
big story of the summer. Unfortunately, not Black Widow itself, not how good the movie was or how much money it made. Of course, it was released on Disney Plus in addition to being put in theaters at the same time. I've talked about it extensively on this show. I think that Disney's strategy, their premier access strategy, is pretty much dog shit, for lack of better phrasing. But I'm not the only one who thinks so, apparently, because big bombshell came out after the release of Black Widow. I think probably like 2 or 3 weeks or so. She waited just enough time. But Scarlett Johansson did announce that she's suing the Walt Disney Company for apparently breaching her contract. She was supposed to make a certain amount of money if the film did really well at the box office. Disney, she's arguing, I guess, undercut her ability to get that box office revenue number hit to where she would make that extra money. So she blames Walt Disney for her shortcomings there. Lots of fallout, but I guess we have to start talking just kind of in general about this. Peyton, what do you think of this Black Widow fallout?
I mean, it's terrible. I feel like after all this time, after all the years Scarlett Johansson has been with the company, that they would have a good, strong, healthy relationship. And basically from all that, it sounds like Disney is ready to just cut ties with her after all of this nonsense is settled. And right now, we don't know the full details. We don't know the full story. Right. We have two people going like, my contract said this, and Disney's going, your contract didn't say that. And we're not going to know what the contract said for a hot second, if we even get to figure it out at all. But when it comes down to it, I feel like they did screw over Scarlett Johansson a lot in this situation. She has been somebody who has been by their side the whole time, and I think she deserved her own movie after being a side character this whole time. And whether the movie was good or it bombed, I think she deserved a fair cut.
Right. Yeah. Especially, I mean, again, this is all we will never, maybe never know the details exactly as the people inside that boardroom were whenever they drew up this contract. But given the details that we do have, John, this really seems like they gave Scarlett the short end of the stick. How do you land on this?
I want to start by saying that yes, the emotions that are attached to loyalty, that are attached to appreciation, and the need to be valued. And unfortunately, in Hollywood terms, value often comes down to tens of millions of dollars. Whether your contract was 9 figures or 8 figures, or God forbid, 6 figures. Yes, she has worked her tail off the entire time. When she finally got her own picture, and part of her income was based on box office metrics, theatrical.
Mhm.
That's the part of the contract that they're examining, is that they said, we didn't guarantee a theatrical only release, we guaranteed a theatrical release. Where that jumping off point comes, say, $300 million total. Well, has it by this time, box office and streaming together, totaled 300 million? Would it have totaled 300 million on its own,
Right,
in a theatrical release? Because that's what her golden parachutes. That's the trigger.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's 300 million, whatever it was or is. From what I understand, there were several bonuses built into the theatrical release revenues. And although they have claimed, that they've taken care of her on the back end with the streaming release, that wasn't the initial understanding.
Mm-hmm.
If we do get to see the contract, it'll only be if it's litigated. It won't be, and I'm sure we'll discuss this in a minute, if it happens behind closed doors, because they can absolutely put a gag order on that whole, behind closed doors proceeding.
There is, John brings up a good point. There is a legal argument to be made here and a moral argument to be made here. And then also, obviously loyalty and everything factors into this, but there is a bit of a, I don't know, I don't want to be the guy that cries sexism, but it does appear very sexist in some ways. They went out and Disney, in response to this, I don't want to say docs, but they released how much money she did make off of Black Widow, as if to be like, look at this petulant child, won't she shut up? She's making all this money. Come on, guys. Right. So yeah, how do you read that, what John was saying, which I think is a good point, the moral argument versus the legal argument, and then also the way that Disney handled their response initially?
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is Hollywood being an actor, all this it's a business. It's a business, and it's going to be treated like a business. In the end, all of the stuff saying I think they should have a healthy relationship after all this time, that doesn't even matter right now. Okay, right. Personally, I want it to end well. I think they owe her a lot, but right. that doesn't matter in the end. They're on damage control right now. They're trying to find any way to make themselves look like the good guy. And we won't fully know who the good and bad guys are, even if there might not even be a good guy in this situation.
Right.
But they're coming up and saying, look how much money she made. And they're also coming out with the statement, oh, we put it on streaming because of COVID-19. That's why we put it
They
on
said
streaming.
That she was being callous, I think, to the people of,
And I think that sounds good on paper. That we put it on streaming because of COVID-19. We don't want people going to the theaters, but we're also going to release it in theaters as well. It's just kind of I don't think you guys really have this good intention of stay at home, buy our streaming service,
right?
Because of COVID-19. I feel like there's definitely something else fishy going on.
Disney, they're throwing stones from glass houses when they call Scarlett Johansson greedy, I would say. John, pick up where you left off. And is this sexist? And did Disney drop the ball with their response?
I don't really have any problem saying that their response was a man response. Was it sexist? They seem to feel pretty comfortable belittling her. Mm-hmm. And they don't seem to have too many qualms at all with taking every statement that comes from her camp and turning it into what a reprehensible, petulant child. They did release her initial salary. $20 million is what Tom Cruise was making for Mission Impossible movies 15 years ago. So they're not doing themselves any favors by saying, hey, we gave her 20 million.
Well, I find it very disingenuous that they're like, oh my God, goodness. This has turned so ugly. We are just so sad that our good friend Scarlett Johansson, the petulant little fucking child that she is, would make this so ugly. You know, like, I'm like, come on, if you're gonna, anyways. But I wanted to mention this also because I do have a couple of actors here. So John, in your experience, how disproportionate is the whole negotiating process whenever you're trying to get a rate to join a project?
In my experience, it's depended on oftentimes track record and the number of times I've worked with the company. That happened in my production career behind the camera too.
Right.
I didn't start making a decent rate until I had a track record, which ScarJo has in spades. So
particularly with the Disney company.
Well, yeah, and to loop that back in, I mean, I was able to eventually negotiate on a non-union status, a flat rate for the last project that I did that was worth it. I'm really leaning toward this concept and this phrasing that's being put out there that Disney sacrificed Black Widow. I think Scarlett Johansson is the sacrificial lamb, and I hope that they continue to pursue it in the light of day.
If this is happening to Scarlett Johansson, surely these big production companies are taking advantage of smaller actors, right?
No, they can't. Mainly because in Los Angeles right now, there's an oversaturation of actors here. Okay, you can walk down the street, you can find anybody, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm an actor," whether they're an actor or not. Because I've talked to people who are literally like, "Yeah, never taken an acting class in my life. I just made the decision to move on down here, become an actor," and it's like, wow, that's so bold. That's so bold. But with any like small growing actor, especially one without representation, non-union, all of that, you don't have room to negotiate or anything like that. I just worked on a true crime series. I helped them with it a year ago, and they're on season 3 now. They called me back and said, "Hey, we want you to come back and do this. Here are your rates. Are you in or are you out?" And if I was like, "No, I think we should tweak this a little, and give me 10% of what like commercial
profit,
revenue you make off of that," dude, they would find another me in 5 minutes. That's how easy it is. Now, if you have representation, you have some managers, agents, even lawyers sometimes to back you up, yeah, you can tweak it around a little bit. But right now with small growing actors, no, they can't. So are we being taken advantage of? Yeah, probably 90% of the time.
Right.
But there's
is there anything you can do about it?
Right. No, there's nothing we can do about it. And I mean, that's just the game. I knew that coming in. It's all a game.
Well,
and you just got to play it.
So yeah, I guess that's the unfortunate thing is with these actors that are these young aspiring actors that are getting everyday roles, they're not in the position to do that. So it's like you said, I think it was really well put, Peyton. It's unfortunate because people are getting taken advantage of on that scale, but you're not really able to do anything about it unless you're Scarlett Johansson. So
right. And then when it happens to these big name actors and actresses, of course it's like, whoa. And they can take it to the extremes that they can.
Right.
To piggyback on what Peyton said about actors who are coming up.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. And even in a market like DC, which is where I was for a while, which is very different when you take the megabus up to Manhattan.
Right.
And, it is by and large, the rate is the rate. And the rate as a union or non-union actor going in. This is what the rate is before you even audition. And so if someone calls you and says, you know, will you come back for this much a day?
Mm-hmm.
You know, even as a non-union actor, I talk to my agent and say, are we taking my price tag down with this
Right.
company? But with so many different production companies in play, once you get to a certain level, yes, you have the ability to take someone to the mat like Scarlett Johansson is trying to do, as long as it's in public and it serves a purpose, which is to show the industry that on every level, things are changing and companies like Walt Disney have to change with them. So will that trickle down to actors who are doing recrees for 150 a day? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it won't. I would love for there to be some victory in this for those of us who, you know, really don't have a choice like she does.
Peyton Grufick, John Bailey, thank you guys so much for joining me to talk about what is an unfortunate subject, but here we are. Somebody's got to do it. Thank you guys so much. Hope you guys can come back.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
And finally, since the release of Avengers Endgame, I've often said that Marvel needs to go back to basics, return their characters to street-level threats, and build up from there. When I say that, I don't really picture this.
Marvel Shang Chi.
It's not just Shang Chi though. Loki dealt with multiple timelines. Spider-Man will have villains from alternate dimensions. And the Doctor Strange sequel is literally called In the Multiverse of Madness. How can you possibly go back to just saving the neighborhood when the stakes have been so high for so long? Some of my favorite comic book films aren't even about the world ending. In The Dark Knight, yes, the Joker admittedly tried to take over Gotham at the end, but the true conflict of the film and the story center on the morality of one man, Harvey Dent. The climax between Batman and Two-Face barely involves any fighting at all. It's mostly just a conversation. The Marvel Cinematic Universe seems to be stuck in a constant cycle of making every single movie, be it a solo film or otherwise, bigger and more bombastic than the last. Couple that with a release strategy that is just bombarding you with content non-stop, the audience is bound to lose investment. By the end of the year alone, we'll have had WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, Black Widow, What If, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Hawkeye, and Spider-Man. I mean, how many times can the world really end in 1 year? I can't lie and say I'm not excited for these big movie events, but if my reaction to Shang-Chi tells you anything, these giant Marvel blockbusters are starting to blend together for me. I'm stuck in a weird place too, because I want to support theaters and see these movies opening weekend. But when all of the Disney films seem to be becoming more bland and mediocre across the board, I just may have to reconsider. Okay, that's our show. I'd like to send a special thank you to Alex McKellar, John Bailey, and Peyton Grufick. Make sure you join us next week where our guests will be Lil Mike and Funny Bone from Reservation Dogs. I'll see you then. Thank you so much, folks.